Every night after closing, Lena Caruso locks the doors of her small Chicago bar and sings to the empty room. It's the only way she feels close to her late mother, whose voice once filled the same space. She thinks she's alone, but she isn't. Hiding in the back, the city's most feared Mafia boss, Nicolai Romano, listens quietly. He's been coming for weeks, drawn by something he can't explain. Tonight, he finally steps from the shadows, because that familiar voice isn't just beautiful, it's the missing piece of a crime he's been hunting for years. Lena's bar sits on the corner of an aging street where few businesses survive. The floorboards creak, and the old jukebox hasn't worked in years. Most nights she serves regulars, people too tired to talk. When they leave, she dims the lights and sings. It started as a small act of comfort, a way to fill the silence her mother left behind. Her mother used to sing on the same stage, and the sound of those songs used to make the room feel alive, even when it was empty. Now Lena sings only to remember. The city outside her bar never truly sleeps. Sirens echo through the night, and rainwater runs down the cracked sidewalks. Lena knows this part of town has its shadows, but she keeps her head down and focuses on the music. Her mother taught her that singing could heal pain, even when no one was listening. So after closing, she hums quietly, then lets her voice grow until it fills the empty chairs. She believes no one cares to hear her anymore, unaware that someone powerful sits in the dark corner every single night. Nicolai Romano doesn't belong in a place like this. He usually conducts business in private clubs or high-rise offices far from small bars. But something about Lena's voice keeps drawing him back. The first night he heard her, he planned to stay for a drink, nothing more. Now it's been 3 weeks, and he hasn't missed a single performance. He sits in the shadows, coat collar turned up, silent. To others, he's the ruthless head of a criminal empire. But here, listening to her sing, he feels something unfamiliar, a pull that unsettles his careful mind. Lena wipes down the counter after closing, then walks toward the small stage. She runs her fingers across the worn microphone, the same one her mother used. She takes a deep breath and begins to sing. Her voice is clear, filled with sorrow, but also strength. The sound drifts through the dim room, wrapping around the empty tables. It's a song her mother used to sing when life felt unbearable. As she sings, memories flash in her mind. The warmth of her mother's laugh, the smell of coffee, and the promise that music could always bring light. In the corner, Nicolai leans forward, elbows on his knees, listening like a man haunted by a memory. There's something strange in the way her tone rises. It's almost identical to another voice he remembers from years ago, a voice tied to a case that never left his mind. He doesn't understand why it feels so personal, but he can't walk away. For a man like him, emotions are distractions, yet her song cuts through every wall he's built. He stays until she finishes, long after the lights fade, then leaves without being seen. Outside, Nicolai stands under the flickering streetlight, the rain tapping against his coat. His driver waits nearby, but Nicolai doesn't move. He keeps hearing that voice in his head. He remembers an old recording from a file his men found years ago, a woman who sang for an underground club tied to a trafficking ring. Her name was listed as deceased. Now that same tone, that same breath, echoes through this bar. He lights a cigarette, knowing this isn't coincidence. The pieces are starting to align, and Lena might be part of something far larger than she knows. Lena locks the bar and steps into the quiet street, pulling her coat tight. She doesn't notice the car parked across from her, engine still running. Nicolai watches as she walks home, her shoes splashing through puddles. He's not sure if he's protecting her or investigating her, maybe both. She reminds him of someone he failed to save. Back in his penthouse, he pulls out an old case file with a familiar name, Caruso. The handwriting on the report is faded, but one thing is clear: her mother's death was never truly closed. Lena's apartment is small and cluttered with sheet music. She sits by the window holding her mother's locket, replaying memories she wishes she could forget. People told her the accident was random, but she never believed it. There was something strange about how quickly the police closed the file. Every year she writes a song on the anniversary, hoping to feel close to her again. Singing in the bar became her ritual. It's the only time she feels her mother is still near, as if the sound of her voice brings the past back to life. The next morning, Nicolai calls one of his contacts in the city's police department. He requests files from an old investigation, one long buried. The officer hesitates but obeys. Nicolai isn't known for patience. He spends the rest of the day studying records, names, and connections. The more he reads, the clearer it becomes that Lena's mother wasn't just a singer, she was part of something deeper. Her music had been used as a signal for hidden transactions between powerful men. The woman's death wasn't random. It was a silencing. Nicolai knows it's happening again. Back at the bar, Lena opens for another slow night. She greets customers with a tired smile and pours drinks like she always does. Every sound, every clinking glass reminds her how quiet her life has become. She doesn't notice the man in the corner this time, the same one who's been coming every night. Nicolai keeps his distance, pretending to read a newspaper. He watches her carefully, noticing small details, the way she hums unconsciously, the way her hands tremble when she holds the mic. He wonders if she has any idea how much danger surrounds her. Late that night, after everyone leaves, Lena prepares to sing again. She doesn't expect anyone to hear, yet the moment she starts, Nicolai feels a chill of recognition. That exact melody was once heard in an encrypted message used by a trafficking syndicate he dismantled years ago. It can't be coincidence. He realizes that whoever killed her mother might think Lena knows something she doesn't. If they've heard her sing, they may already be watching. Nicolai knows he can't stay hidden much longer. Protecting her may be the only way to uncover the truth. Lena finishes her song and notices a folded note lying near the bar door. It's typed and unsigned, warning her to stop singing at night. She frowns, confused, but dismisses it as a prank. Yet, deep down, something feels off. The next night she finds another note, this time left on her counter. She wonders who's doing it. She never imagined her late-night singing could attract anyone's attention. Her mother once warned her about trusting strangers, but she's tired of living in fear. She keeps singing, unaware that someone dangerous has already noticed. Across town, Nicolai's men track a pattern of movements from known traffickers. Several are meeting near Lena's neighborhood. He suspects they're the same ones who operated under the name the Verano network. They've resurfaced. The name Caruso appears again in coded files. Nicolai knows they believe the daughter might possess the same recordings her mother once used to expose them. He orders his men to watch the bar discreetly. He's aware that his presence alone could draw attention, but he can't ignore what's unfolding. He's seen innocent people vanish for far less. Lena wakes up to find her front door unlocked. She's sure she secured it the night before. Nothing is stolen, but the unease lingers. She decides to brush it off, blaming exhaustion. At the bar, she notices a black car parked across the street, but assumes it's a customer's. Later that night, while counting cash, she spots a man's reflection briefly in the mirror before it disappears. Fear prickles through her chest, but she keeps working. She doesn't know that Nicolai has stationed guards nearby, waiting for the right moment to step in. Nicolai decides to stop hiding. He enters the bar quietly as Lena finishes locking up. She freezes when she notices him standing in the doorway. He tells her she's in danger, but his tone isn't threatening, it's protective. He explains enough for her to sense the truth, though not all of it. She's confused and skeptical, yet something about his calm presence stops her from panicking. That night, Nicolai leaves 2 men outside her bar to watch over her. For the first time, Lena's songs aren't echoing into emptiness. Someone is truly listening now. The next morning, Nicolai meets with his trusted advisor in a private cafe uptown. He slides an old photo across the table, Lena's mother smiling beside a microphone. His advisor looks uneasy, recognizing her from past reports. Nicolai confirms that the woman was murdered after refusing to perform at a private event linked to the Verano network. Her daughter's identical voice could expose the same people. Nicolai realizes time is short. The same men who silenced the mother will come for the daughter. Protecting her isn't just personal now, it's the only way to complete what he started. Lena wakes up uneasy, still thinking about the stranger from the night before. Something about him didn't feel wrong, even though she should have been terrified. She keeps hearing his words echo in her mind. At the bar, customers gossip about a recent police raid nearby. A few mention missing girls and closed clubs. Lena's stomach tightens, but she says nothing. That night she decides not to sing, but the silence feels unbearable. She turns off the lights, walks to the stage and begins to hum, unaware Nicolai's men are already outside guarding the entrance. Nicolai drives through the city, his mind divided between business and the woman he barely knows. He has spent years cleaning up other people's messes, traffickers, corrupt judges, violent brokers, but now he's starting to feel something he hasn't in decades. Empathy. He tells himself it's just duty, not emotion. Yet when he thinks of Lena singing alone, the thought unsettles him. He orders extra surveillance around her block and instructs his team to identify anyone watching her. In a world built on control and power, she's the only thing he can't seem to manage rationally. Late that night, one of Nicolai's men reports unusual movement near the bar. A van circles the block twice before stopping briefly in the alley. The team checks, but the van drives off before they can approach. Nicolai studies the security feed later, pausing on a blurred image of a man standing near the back door. His instincts confirm what the picture suggests: she's being watched. The next day, Nicolai cancels his other meetings. He knows this kind of surveillance always happens before a hit. The men who killed her mother are getting restless again. At the bar, Lena goes through her normal closing routine, unaware of the danger growing around her. She wipes down glasses, hums softly, and walks to the stage. She feels watched, but tells herself it's nerves. Her mother's song begins again, filling the quiet space. Outside, Nicolai leans against his car, listening through the half-open door. He closes his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. He doesn't know why her voice calms him when everything else in his life feels like chaos. Tonight he decides he will not hide anymore. She deserves the truth. Before we continue with Lena's story, if you're enjoying it, take a second to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're listening from. It truly helps bring more stories like this to life. When the final note fades, Lena turns to find Nicolai standing near the bar counter. The sight makes her step back, unsure what he wants. He apologizes for scaring her, explaining that she's being watched. His voice is calm but certain. He tells her that her mother's name came up again in an investigation involving powerful people. Lena listens quietly, unsure what to believe. Nicolai doesn't pressure her. He simply tells her to keep her doors locked and avoid staying late. He leaves as quietly as he came, but his presence lingers in her thoughts. The following day, Lena can't focus. She replays everything he said, trying to make sense of it. She searches her mother's old belongings for answers: letters, recordings, anything. Inside a box of music sheets, she finds a newspaper clipping about a fire that destroyed a recording studio years ago. Her mother's name appears in the article. The report claims it was an accident. But Lena notices something odd: a handwritten date in the corner that doesn't match the printed one. Her pulse quickens. For the first time, she wonders if the stranger might be telling the truth. Nicolai spends the day in his office, surrounded by files, maps, and lists of names. His right-hand man briefs him about a recent meeting between two rival families connected to the Verano network. One of them mentioned a singer being used to move coded messages. Nicolai clenches his jaw. He knows it refers to Lena's mother, and now they think her daughter might be doing the same unknowingly. He orders his men to keep surveillance on all suspects. He doesn't care how much it costs. This isn't business anymore, it's personal. The past won't repeat itself. Lena tries to distract herself with work, but anxiety follows her like a shadow. Late at night, she walks home under the streetlights, glancing over her shoulder every few steps. She doesn't notice the car that follows slowly behind until it turns off a block later. At home, she double-checks the locks, sits on her couch and stares at her mother's photo. She whispers a quiet promise to stay brave. Across the street, one of Nicolai's men watches her window from a parked car, ready to intervene if anyone approaches the building. 2 nights later, Lena finds the same man from before waiting outside the bar again, Nicolai. He looks tired but composed. He tells her the notes she's been receiving aren't harmless, and that people are looking for something her mother left behind. She doesn't understand what that means. He suggests she stop singing after hours, but she refuses. He admires her courage but worries her defiance will attract attention. After he leaves, she sits on the empty stage and stares at the microphone, feeling trapped between fear and the need to hold on to her mother's memory. Nicolai's men intercept a message meant for one of the Verano contacts. It describes the daughter's voice and instructs to recover what's hidden in her possession. Nicolai realizes they believe she has the missing recordings. He knows she doesn't, but the network won't care. To them, she's a threat. He instructs his men to stay close and prepares for the worst. He has dealt with these people before. Once they set their eyes on a target, they don't stop. He feels responsible now, not because she asked for help, but because fate pushed her into his world. At dawn, Lena wakes to loud knocking. It's one of Nicolai's guards, warning her that someone broke into the bar overnight. She rushes there to find the back door pried open and papers scattered across the floor. The safe remains untouched, but her mother's old recordings are gone. Panic tightens her chest. Nicolai arrives moments later, scanning the damage silently. He tells her they need to move her somewhere safe. She hesitates, not trusting him fully yet. But as she looks around the wrecked room, she realizes whoever did this isn't stopping anytime soon. Inside Nicolai's black SUV, Lena stays quiet. She doesn't ask where they're going. The city blurs outside the window, lights fading as they head toward the outskirts. Nicolai explains that her mother was involved in something dangerous, an effort to expose corruption in the city's elite. Her voice had been used as an encrypted signal for trafficking payments. Lena listens in disbelief. Her mother, a symbol of kindness and music, caught in such darkness, she feels her throat tighten, but she refuses to cry. She just wants to understand why her mother had to die. They arrive at a secure townhouse guarded by Nicolai's men. The interior is simple but safe. Lena sits by the window trying to process everything. Nicolai tells her to rest, promising she'll be protected here. For him, it's more than protection. It's a vow. He spends hours reviewing reports, making calls and analyzing connections that might lead to her mother's killers. Outside, heavy rain falls across the city. The same streets that once belonged to his enemies now feel smaller, closing in. He's determined to finish what her mother started, no matter how bloody it becomes. Days pass, and Lena begins to notice the strange contrast of her new life: silence, safety, and tension mixed together. She practices songs quietly to keep her mind occupied. Each note reminds Nicolai why he's here. He starts joining her for coffee in the mornings, their conversations short but warm. He sees her not as a case, but as someone human, something rare in his world. For the first time in years, he smiles without meaning to. It unsettles him more than any enemy could. He begins to realize that saving her might also save him. Word spreads through the city that Nicolai Romano has gone quiet. His rivals grow suspicious. They assume he's planning another takeover, but in truth he's occupied with a single mission: finding who killed Lena's mother. He assigns new men to handle the business while he focuses on her safety. His closest associates worry that he's losing his edge, but they know better than to question him directly. Nicolai's calm is more dangerous than his anger. And right now, all that calm is aimed toward uncovering a truth that powerful people have tried hard to bury. Lena begins to trust Nicolai, though she doesn't fully understand him. She sees glimpses of kindness beneath the cold exterior. He brings her favorite tea without asking, fixes a loose hinge on the window, and leaves her alone when she needs space. These small acts mean more than his promises. One night, while she hums softly by the window, he listens from the hallway, unwilling to interrupt. For a man who has ordered death without hesitation, it's strange how easily he hesitates now. Her voice disarms him, reminding him of everything he thought he'd lost. Meanwhile, Nicolai's investigators uncover new evidence. Lena's mother had recorded several tapes naming government officials tied to the network. Those tapes vanished after her death. One of the same names appears in Nicolai's past dealings, a politician he once helped protect. Realization hits him hard. He unknowingly shielded the people who orchestrated her murder. The guilt stirs something dark inside him. He promises himself he will correct that mistake, even if it costs him his empire. For the first time, his loyalty to his criminal code begins to crack under the weight of something deeper. One afternoon, Lena finds Nicolai studying an old photograph. It's her mother, performing on stage years ago. He tells her that she used to sing at private charity events, some of which were fronts for criminal dealings. She's horrified, not because of her mother's involvement, but because of how dangerous those people still are. Nicolai tells her that the same men are still alive, still operating in secret. She begins to understand why he's helping her. It's not pity, it's unfinished business. And perhaps, a need to find redemption through her mother's legacy. Nicolai's network alerts him about a pattern: several anonymous accounts transferring funds to offshore banks, using identical encryption to the recordings from the Caruso case. He knows it's a signal. The Verano network is active again. He tells Lena they must move her to another location, but she resists. She's tired of running. He respects her will but warns that stubbornness comes with risk. Still, he admires her strength. She reminds him of the person he once wanted to be, fearless and free from corruption. That night, he doubles her guards, unwilling to take any chances. Lena visits her mother's grave for the first time in months. Nicolai stands at a respectful distance, letting her have the moment. She places flowers on the headstone and whispers a promise to keep singing, no matter what happens. Nicolai listens quietly, realizing he's standing beside someone far braver than most of his men. When she's done, she turns and thanks him, not with words, but with a small nod. That simple gesture carries more meaning than any oath. He swears silently that no harm will ever come to her again. That evening, Nicolai receives new intelligence. Someone inside his own organization is feeding information to the Verano network. The betrayal cuts deep. Trust is the only currency he values, and now it's tainted. He orders a full internal audit, quietly removing anyone with questionable ties. He can't risk another mistake. Meanwhile, Lena senses his tension but says nothing. She doesn't yet know the lengths he's willing to go to protect her. For Nicolai, loyalty has always been a matter of power, but with her it's something else entirely, something that feels dangerously close to love. The following morning, Lena finds Nicolai pacing the hallway, clearly troubled. He tells her that his enemies are closer than expected, and that the same forces who killed her mother are now active again. She asks what he plans to do, and he answers with quiet certainty, he'll burn every connection they have. She watches him walk away, realizing how far he's willing to go. For years he's ruled through fear, but now his actions are driven by something purer. She wonders if love and vengeance can ever coexist, or if one must destroy the other. As the city sinks into another restless night, Nicolai's men trail a convoy linked to the Verano network. They discover hidden shipments and coded ledgers inside an abandoned warehouse. The documents mention Lena's mother's name again, but this time paired with another word, successor. Nicolai realizes the network believes Lena inherited something more than her mother's voice. Maybe a password, maybe the location of something valuable. Either way, they'll come for her. He knows there's no turning back now. Protecting her means starting a war that will change everything he's built, and he's ready. That night, Nicolai returns to the safe house and finds Lena asleep on the couch, an old song playing softly on her phone. He stands in silence, watching her breathe, realizing how fragile peace really is. His world was never meant for people like her. Honest, kind, untouched by power. He wonders if he can keep her safe without breaking her spirit. Outside, his guards remain alert, scanning every passing car. The storm that's been building for years is about to break, and when it does, he knows it will test them both in ways neither expects. Late one evening, Lena returns to her apartment to pick up a few things. The hallway lights flicker as she turns her key in the door. The moment she steps inside, she senses something isn't right. The air feels different, as if someone has been there. Her heart tightens when she notices the framed photo of her mother slightly tilted, something she never moves. She searches the apartment carefully, but nothing appears stolen. Then she sees the piano bench pulled back and the sheet music scattered. Someone has been looking for something and they didn't find it. Nicolai arrives minutes later after her panicked call. His men sweep the apartment, confirming forced entry through the fire escape. They find faint footprints on the windowsill, size too small for his men, too deliberate to be random. On the table, a single music page lies face down, a message scrawled across it in black ink. Stop singing. Nicolai studies the handwriting. It matches a note from the Verano archives. Whoever broke in is sending a warning, not a robbery. He tells Lena to pack quickly. She's now officially part of something she never asked for. Back at the safe house, Nicolai reviews the security footage from nearby cameras. He freezes the video on a man wearing a cap and gloves, watching Lena's building for hours before the break-in. Nicolai knows that look. It's a hired enforcer. He sends the image to his team and doubles the guards outside the safe house. He doesn't tell Lena how serious it is. She's already anxious, and he doesn't want fear to paralyze her. He's learned that courage isn't about having no fear, it's about protecting what matters even when fear is constant. For him, that's her now. In his private study, Nicolai reviews new intelligence reports. A familiar name resurfaces, an officer who once worked on Lena's mother's case. The man retired quietly, but now consults for private clients. Nicolai suspects he's working with the Verano network. He calls an associate in law enforcement, requesting every file the officer touched. The deeper he looks, the uglier it gets. Bribes, cover-ups, missing evidence, all tied to one group. Nicolai realizes Lena's mother was close to exposing them before she died. Her daughter's voice might have been the last warning they never wanted heard again. Meanwhile, Lena tries to fill her time. She cooks, reads, and occasionally hums when she feels safe. Nicolai catches her singing once and tells her to keep doing it quietly. He says her voice calms the men outside, though he won't admit it calms him too. One evening, while she hums a familiar melody, he notices something odd in the pattern of notes. It sounds coded, almost intentional. He records it on his phone and runs it through a decoding program later that night. The result leaves him speechless. It forms a sequence of numbers, coordinates. Nicolai traces the coordinates to a warehouse in the city's industrial district, one long abandoned. He sends a small team to investigate. Inside, they find audio equipment covered in dust and a wall full of recording reels, each labeled with initials. One of them matches Lena's mother's name. He orders them to bring everything back immediately. When he tells Lena what they found, she doesn't know whether to cry or panic. Her mother's past is no longer just mystery, it's evidence. Nicolai suspects these tapes contain the truth everyone risked their lives to hide. The recordings reveal snippets of conversation between powerful men discussing deals, names, and deliveries. One tape includes audio proof of money transfers linked to public officials. Lena listens, her hands shaking. Her mother was gathering this for someone, perhaps Nicolai's late sister who once ran an underground rescue network before being killed. Nicolai finally understands why the Verano network wanted the recordings destroyed. They expose everyone. For the first time in years he feels hope. Not for himself but for justice his sister never got. Lena's mother had died trying to help her. Fate connected them long before they met. While Nicolai processes the discovery, a trusted soldier delivers bad news. One of his inner circle betrayed them, leaking information to the Verano network. Nicolai feels the sting of betrayal more than anger. Trust was sacred in his world. He orders the traitor found but alive. He needs to know what's been shared. That night he stands on the balcony overlooking the city lights, thinking of his sister and Lena. For years he believed redemption was impossible, but protecting Lena feels like a chance to right an old wrong. He vows not to waste it. At dawn, Nicolai receives a call from his men. The traitor has been located and brought in. Nicolai interrogates him personally, his tone calm but sharp. The man admits he sold information about Lena's location for cash. He also reveals that the Verano network plans to strike within days. Nicolai doesn't raise his voice. He simply walks away, knowing what must be done. He warns his guards to prepare for an attack, and to move Lena again. His enemies think he'll run. Instead he plans to confront them head-on. He's tired of waiting in shadows. Lena wakes up early and finds Nicolai in the kitchen, still in last night's clothes. He looks exhausted, but there's a quiet determination in his eyes. He tells her they're leaving for a new safe house. She senses he's hiding something heavier but doesn't press. She trusts him now, more than she expected to trust anyone again. The ride through the outskirts is silent except for the sound of rain on the windshield. Nicolai's driver glances at the mirror occasionally, watching the road behind them. It feels less like an escape and more like the calm before a storm. The new safe house sits by the lake, hidden behind tall pine trees and a stone gate. Inside, the furniture is minimal but comfortable. Lena finds an old piano near the window and sits down, touching the keys like an old friend. She plays softly, her notes echoing through the quiet space. Nicolai listens from the hallway, arms crossed, caught between admiration and unease. Her music reminds him of the world he no longer belongs to, a world with warmth, innocence, and honesty. He wonders if she'll still look at him the same way once she learns everything he's done. That evening, Nicolai meets with his most trusted lieutenant, a man named Victor who's been with him for years. Victor confirms that several corrupt officials tied to the Verano network are panicking after rumors of a leak. Nicolai tells him to feed the panic, spread word that he has something valuable. He knows it will draw them out. He's planning to use Lena's recordings as bait. It's dangerous, but he has no other choice. If they stay hidden, they'll strike again. The only way to end this is to make them feel cornered, just like her mother once was. Lena spends her days at the lake house trying to feel normal again. She takes short walks, writes in her notebook, and practices music. Nicolai keeps his distance, knowing she needs peace, but he watches from afar, unable to stop himself. Every night she sings near the open window, and her voice carries across the still water. His men sometimes pause their patrols to listen. For the first time in years, the house feels alive. Nicolai realizes she's not just surviving this situation, she's transforming it into something human, something beautiful in a life built on control. Late one night, Lena finds Nicolai outside on the porch, staring at the lake. She sits nearby without speaking. The silence between them feels natural, not uncomfortable. Nicolai thinks about telling her the truth about his sister and the connection to her mother, but he hesitates. She deserves honesty, yet he fears it will change how she sees him. He's killed men for far less than what she's suffered through. She looks at him and sees not a monster, but a man carrying too many ghosts. For a brief moment, the world around them feels still, almost peaceful. The next morning, Nicolai receives word that one of his safe houses was raided overnight. The attackers found nothing, but the message is clear. They're closing in. He gathers his team and maps out a counter-strategy. Lena listens quietly, realizing this isn't just a criminal war, it's personal to him. The men around Nicolai treat him with unwavering respect, but she notices something else in their eyes. They know what happens when Nicolai is pushed too far. Yet through all the tension, she sees something she didn't expect. His focus isn't on revenge anymore, it's on protecting her. Days turn into a blur of planning, messages, and quiet waiting. Nicolai monitors calls, tracks movements, and coordinates operations across the city. Lena spends her time sorting through her mother's old notes, trying to find clues. One entry catches her attention. It mentions a final recording stored somewhere safe. She shows it to Nicolai. His eyes narrow. If that recording still exists, it might be the key to everything. He orders his men to trace every old studio her mother worked in. The search reignites his energy, and for the first time they have a direction again. A lead takes them to a decommissioned music studio downtown. The place is dusty and half collapsed, but the basement remains intact. Inside they find an old safe hidden behind a cracked wall. Nicolai's men open it and discover a small box labeled with Lena's mother's initials. Inside are audio tapes, photographs, and a journal. Lena flips through the pages, realizing it's her mother's handwriting. The journal details her final days, her fear of being watched, and a plan to expose powerful people using music as coded evidence. It's both heartbreaking and empowering to finally see the truth written down. Nicolai studies the photographs from the box. One catches his attention, a picture of Lena's mother with a young woman who looks familiar. He realizes it's his sister. The two had known each other. Suddenly, everything fits. Lena's mother wasn't just a bystander, she was helping his sister expose the same network that eventually killed them both. Nicolai's chest tightens with guilt and rage. He tells Lena what he's discovered, and tears fill her eyes, not from sadness but from understanding. Their lives have been tied together by loss, and now by purpose. The fight isn't hers alone anymore. That night, Nicolai and Lena sit by the fire, the open journal between them. She asks what his sister was like, and he tells her stories he hasn't spoken aloud in years. She was strong, fearless, and cared for people who couldn't defend themselves. Lena realizes that same strength lives in her mother, and maybe in herself. Nicolai looks at her and sees hope where he once saw nothing but vengeance. They share quiet gratitude, not needing to say what's already clear. They're bound not by circumstance, but by a shared mission that has become deeply personal. The following day, Nicolai gets word that one of his warehouses is under surveillance. He orders his men to move quickly, anticipating another attack. Lena watches as he operates with precision, giving calm orders that make hardened men obey without hesitation. She sees the duality in him, the leader capable of violence and the man capable of care. When the operation ends successfully, he returns to her side, weary but relieved. For the first time, Lena truly sees the cost of his world, the sleepless nights, the endless caution, and the constant threat that never fades. That evening, Lena plays the piano while Nicolai reviews the journal once more. Her music drifts through the room, soft and steady. He can't help but glance at her, wondering how she manages to find peace in chaos. He realizes that her presence doesn't just calm him, it forces him to confront the kind of man he's become. Her mother's courage, her voice, her strength. They've all passed to Lena. He knows he must protect that light at all costs, even if it means losing everything else he's built. The decision is already made in his heart. Nicolai's network delivers a crucial update. The corrupt officer who handled the Caruso case has resurfaced in the city, meeting privately with Verano representatives. Nicolai decides to go himself. He meets the man in a quiet parking lot, cornering him with 2 guards. The officer panics and confesses that he falsified reports under pressure from higher-ups. Before Nicolai leaves, the man blurts something unexpected. The final recording still exists and was duplicated. One copy is hidden inside Lena's bar. Nicolai returns to the lake house with urgency. What's left behind could change everything. When he tells Lena about the duplicate recording, she insists on retrieving it herself. Nicolai refuses, saying it's too dangerous, but she stands her ground. The bar holds her mother's memory, and she won't let anyone else touch it. He finally agrees to go with her. That night, they drive into the city, keeping to side streets and alleys. The bar looks lifeless, windows dusty and boarded. Inside, everything is just as she left it, except for the broken piano. She kneels beside it, searching through the hollow base, hoping the last piece of truth is still waiting. After several tense minutes, Lena finds a metal box wedged behind the piano frame. Her hands tremble as she opens it. Inside lies a single cassette labeled in her mother's handwriting. Final. Nicolai inspects it and tells her they'll listen to it safely back at the lake house. As they leave, he notices fresh tire marks near the alley. His instincts flare, someone else has been here. He tells her to hurry, leading her toward the car. Behind them, a figure watches from the shadows, phone pressed to his ear, confirming that the target has been found. On the drive back, the tension is heavy. Nicolai checks the mirrors constantly, noticing headlights following too closely behind. He tells his driver to take a different route through back roads. The headlights disappear for a moment, then reappear. He realizes it's not coincidence. They've been tracked. He tells Lena to stay low as his men prepare. Just as they turn toward the lakeside road, two black SUVs emerge from opposite ends. The trap is sprung. Nicolai's jaw tightens. He's ready for this. For years he's hunted ghosts, but now the ghosts have come to him. Gunfire breaks out as Nicolai's convoy swerves onto the side road. His guards return fire, shielding Lena, while the driver pushes the car through a narrow forest path. Bullets tear through the rear window, glass scattering across the seat. Nicolai stays calm, directing his men with sharp precision. Lena clutches the cassette tightly, realizing it's what they came for. The chase continues for miles until one SUV crashes against a tree, clearing their path. When they finally reach open ground, Nicolai orders the driver toward an abandoned factory nearby. It's time to make their stand. Inside the factory, the air smells of rust and oil. Nicolai's men secure the exits while he checks on Lena. She's shaken but unhurt. He places the cassette in his coat pocket and orders everyone to prepare for a counterattack. He knows this location will be swarming soon. Lena wants to help, but doesn't know how. He tells her to stay near the back office and wait for his signal. As the echo of footsteps fills the space, Nicolai readies his weapon. This is no longer just a defense, it's retribution for every life the Verano network destroyed. The first group of attackers enters through the side entrance. Nicolai moves with the ease of experience, coordinating his men silently. The firefight is brief and efficient. When the last echo fades, he orders his team to move Lena out through the rear door. The driver speeds her toward the lake house while Nicolai stays behind to finish clearing the site. He knows she'll argue, but it's safer this way. As the sun rises, he stands among the debris, knowing the fight has only begun. The recording in his pocket now carries the weight of everything he's lost. At the lake house, Lena paces the floor, waiting for news. Hours pass with no word from Nicolai. She finally hears the crunch of tires outside and rushes to the door. Nicolai walks in, covered in dirt and dust, exhaustion written across his face. He tells her the ambush is over but not the war. They've hit one part of the network, but others remain hidden. He places the cassette on the table and says they'll listen together. Lena nods, heart pounding. Whatever's on that tape could either free them or destroy everything that's left. They play the recording. A woman's voice fills the room. Lena's mother. She's speaking in a calm, steady tone, listing names and locations of meetings between city officials and traffickers. The final message is hauntingly clear. If anything happens to her, the recordings must reach the public. Lena's tears fall silently as Nicolai listens in grim silence. The evidence is enough to dismantle half the city's power structure, but releasing it means drawing every enemy they have left. Nicolai leans back, realizing the decision now belongs to Lena. Her mother left her more than a voice, she left her purpose. News spreads quietly among the underworld that Nicolai Romano has something that can bring the city down. Rival bosses start to distance themselves from him, fearing the chaos that might follow. Nicolai doesn't care. He knows what he's holding is more powerful than any weapon. Lena feels torn between wanting justice and fearing the consequences. Nicolai assures her that the truth is worth the risk. For years he's lived by power and silence. Now for the first time he sees a way to use that power for something real. He's done serving monsters in expensive suits. The next morning, Victor returns with disturbing news. One of their men was found dead, his phone missing. Nicolai immediately understands the location of the lake house has been compromised. He orders Lena to pack again, his tone firm but controlled. She wants to stay, insisting she's tired of running, but he doesn't argue. His instincts have kept him alive this long. They leave within minutes, the cassette hidden in a secret compartment under the car seat. As they drive away, a black drone circles above the trees, quietly tracking their every move. The chase isn't over. They reach a quiet town an hour outside the city and take refuge in a small safe house near the edge of a field. Nicolai stations guards around the property while Lena settles inside. He watches her stare out the window, lost in thought. She tells him she wants to release her mother's recording to the public. Nicolai hesitates, knowing the fallout will be massive, but seeing the conviction in her eyes, he agrees. He promises to help her do it safely. For the first time, their goals align completely. They're not hiding anymore, they're fighting back. Nikolai contacts an old friend who runs an independent news outlet. He arranges a meeting in a secluded park. The journalist is hesitant but agrees after hearing what's at stake. Nikolai gives him partial evidence and promises full disclosure soon. As they part ways, Nikolai notices two unfamiliar cars parked nearby. He realizes the network is already aware of their plan. He signals his men to retreat. The war has moved into daylight now. Lena's voice, once a symbol of grief, has become the spark that could burn an empire to the ground. That night, Lena wakes from a restless sleep to the sound of footsteps outside. She peers through the curtain and sees a flicker of movement near the trees. Before she can call out, gunfire erupts. Nikolai's men engage the attackers while he rushes to pull her to safety. The safe house windows shatter, and smoke fills the air. Nikolai leads her through a hidden exit beneath the floorboards and into the nearby field. They crawl through the tall grass until the sounds fade. When they finally reach the road, the house behind them burns, flames lighting up the night. They hide in an abandoned barn until morning. Lena's hands are scraped, and Nikolai's jacket is torn from the escape. She looks at him, realizing how far he's gone to protect her. He brushes off his injuries, more concerned about her safety. When dawn breaks, they move again, this time on foot. They reach a small village, where Nikolai arranges transport under false names. As they wait, Lena stares at the sunrise and makes a quiet vow. She won't let her mother's voice die in secret. Nikolai listens, knowing she's become stronger than he ever imagined. By afternoon, they reach a small warehouse owned by one of Nikolai's remaining allies. Inside, his men regroup and assess the situation. The attack confirmed one thing: the Verano network is desperate. Nikolai knows desperation makes enemies reckless. He plans to use that to his advantage. He calls Victor and instructs him to spread false information about a meeting place. The bait will draw the remaining leaders out. He intends to end this conflict on his terms. Meanwhile, Lena sits nearby, reviewing the recordings again, memorizing every name and date as if preparing for her mother's final act. As evening falls, Nikolai and Lena share a brief meal in silence. The exhaustion shows on both their faces. He tells her that tomorrow will change everything. She doesn't ask how, she just nods, understanding the gravity. For years, Nikolai fought wars for money and control. This time he's fighting for redemption. That night, while Lena sleeps, he writes a letter and leaves it in his coat pocket. It's a confession, a final message, if he doesn't survive what's coming. In it, he thanks her for reminding him what it means to be human again. The next morning, Nikolai's men report that the Verano leaders have taken the bait. A meeting is scheduled at a luxury hotel downtown. Nikolai decides to attend in person. Lena insists on going too, knowing she can blend in as a performer for the event. Nikolai resists but finally agrees. She's no longer a bystander, and he respects that. They prepare carefully: new identities, forged documents, backup plans. Nikolai wears his usual composure, but inside he knows this might be the final move. Either they win today or the city stays buried under corruption forever. At the hotel, the ballroom sparkles with chandeliers and gold-trimmed walls. Wealthy guests mingle, unaware of the war simmering beneath the surface. Nikolai blends in among them, scanning faces, marking exits. Lena takes the stage as part of the night's entertainment, her presence graceful and calm. When she begins to sing, the room falls silent. Hidden within her melody are words and phrases from her mother's final recording, coded confessions disguised as song. Nikolai watches her, proud and terrified all at once. Around the hall, hidden cameras broadcast everything live to the journalist he contacted earlier. The plan unfolds perfectly until one of the Verano guards recognizes Nikolai. Panic spreads. Security rushes toward him as he signals his men. Chaos erupts in the ballroom. Tables overturn. Guests scatter and cameras continue to roll. Lena keeps singing through the commotion, her voice unwavering. Nikolai fights his way through the confusion, ensuring she's protected. When it's over, several key figures are in custody, and the recording has already reached public channels. The scandal hits the airwaves within minutes. What began as a song of grief becomes the anthem that unmasks the city's most powerful criminals. By the next morning, the story dominates every news outlet. Arrests sweep through the city: judges, officers, politicians, and brokers. The Verano network collapses within days. Lena watches the broadcasts in disbelief. Her mother's voice, silenced years ago, is now the force that brought justice. Nikolai stands by her side, quiet and resolute. His empire, built on crime and loyalty, begins to crumble under the new spotlight. But for once, he doesn't care about loss. He's never felt lighter. For years he carried guilt for what his world destroyed. Now through her, something pure has been restored. Still, peace comes at a price. Nicolai's rivals take advantage of his distraction, attacking his remaining territories. Victor urges him to fight back, but Nicolai refuses to reignite another war. He instructs his men to protect the innocent and let the rest go. He no longer wants control, only closure. Lena doesn't fully understand his decision until she sees the exhaustion in his eyes. Years of bloodshed and betrayal have finally caught up to him. She realizes he's not running from power, he's letting it go. The man who once ruled through fear now seeks peace above everything. Lena receives an invitation to perform on a televised charity event honoring survivors of trafficking. She hesitates, unsure if she's ready to stand before the world again. Nicolai encourages her quietly, saying that her mother would have wanted it. She agrees. The night of the performance, the crowd listens in silence as she sings her mother's song now known worldwide. When she finishes, the entire hall rises in applause. Nicolai watches from backstage, hidden from the cameras. It's her moment and he wants nothing but to see her claim it. She has become the light his darkness couldn't destroy. After the event, Nicolai disappears for several days. His phone goes unanswered, and his men can't reach him. Lena grows anxious but refuses to believe he's gone. She waits at the lake house, replaying the tape they found together. Each note reminds her of his promise. On the fourth night, headlights approach through the fog. Nicolai steps out, his arm in a sling, and his clothes torn. He says nothing, just nods. He's finished what he needed to do, cut off the last surviving branch of the Verano network. He's free now, though not without scars. Lena tends to his wounds, scolding him softly for leaving without warning. He sits quietly while she cleans his arm, the silence between them filled with gratitude. She asks what happens now. He admits he doesn't know, but for once, uncertainty doesn't scare him. He tells her that peace isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing what comes next. She smiles, understanding that both of them have earned the right to stop running. That night, they sit by the fire again, not as protector and survivor, but as two people finally learning to breathe. Days turn into weeks. The city begins to heal under new leadership. The old networks dismantled piece by piece. Lena reopens her bar, repainting the walls and replacing the broken piano. She renames it Il Voto, meaning the promise. The first night she sings again, people fill the room. Her voice carries the same warmth it always had, but now it's stronger, unbroken. Nicolai stands in the back, dressed simply, no longer the boss everyone feared. To the crowd, he's just another listener. To Lena, he's the man who gave her mother's promise back. One evening while closing the bar, Lena finds a white rose placed on the stage. No note, no message, just the flower. Pure and simple, she knows who left it. Nicolai has always preferred silence to words. She smiles, placing it in a glass near the piano. It becomes a small tradition. Every time he visits, another rose appears, each one a quiet reminder of loyalty and gratitude. Their bond isn't loud or dramatic, it's steady, built on everything they survived together. In a world once filled with lies, their truth now feels rare and worth protecting. As time passes, Lena's story inspires others. Journalists call her the woman who sang justice into the light. She begins a small foundation for victims of exploitation, funded anonymously through Nicolai's accounts. The world sees her as a symbol of courage, but she knows she didn't do it alone. Nicolai watches her from a distance, proud but unwilling to step into her spotlight. He's not looking for redemption anymore. He found it the moment she chose to sing, instead of hide. Her voice became his second chance, the melody that saved them both. One night, Lena walks outside after closing, feeling the cool air against her skin. The city hums softly around her, peaceful for the first time in years. She looks across the street and spots Nicolai leaning against his car, watching quietly. No words pass between them. He nods once, and she nods back. They both understand. Their paths were never meant to be ordinary, but somehow they found peace in each other's chaos. As he drives away, she whispers a thank you to the night. Her mother's voice may have started it, but her own finished the story. Months pass, and the city continues to rebuild itself from the wreckage of corruption. Lena's bar becomes a quiet refuge for locals who once feared the streets at night. She sings regularly again, and though her songs still carry traces of sorrow, they also hold strength. People say her voice feels like healing. Nicolai visits less often, choosing to live away from the chaos, but his presence is always felt. His men still protect her discreetly. The world may not know his name anymore, but in silence he remains her unseen guardian. Nicolai's influence fades from the criminal world, replaced by new faces eager for power. Some whisper that he died, others that he left the country. In truth, he spends his days in a quiet villa outside Florence, rebuilding what's left of his conscience. He keeps no guards, no meetings, no empire, just letters from Victor about how the city has stabilized. Every morning he reads the headlines that mention Lena's name, her songs, her foundation. For the first time in decades, he feels peace without needing control. The empire he lost never mattered as much as what he found. Back in Chicago, Lena's foundation grows faster than she expected. Survivors reach out, asking for help or simply to share their stories. She works tirelessly, traveling to shelters, organizing events, and performing to raise funds. The world sees her as a symbol of resilience, but she still thinks of herself as a daughter keeping a promise. Each success feels like a message sent to her mother saying, "I did it." At night, she still glances at the door, half expecting Nicolai to walk in again, even if only to listen in his usual silence. One morning, Lena receives a letter postmarked from Italy. Inside is a single sentence written in careful handwriting, "Keep singing, the world still needs it." She knows exactly who sent it. There's no signature, but the tone gives him away. She smiles, holding the letter against her chest. She imagines Nicolai sitting somewhere under the sun, finally free from shadows. That small thought fills her with quiet warmth. Some people heal by leaving, others by staying. Together in different places, they're still connected by the same melody that once bound their lives together. As her reputation grows, major networks approach Lena for interviews. She agrees to one special broadcast to talk about her mother's legacy. During the interview, she shares details she's never spoken aloud: the night her mother disappeared, the years of silence that followed, and the mysterious man who helped her find the truth. She never mentions Nicolai by name, only describing him as someone who protected what others tried to destroy. The interviewer calls it poetic, but Lena knows it's more than that. It's a truth that words could never fully capture. Across the ocean, Nicolai watches the same interview on an old television in his villa. The reporter asks Lena about fear and forgiveness, and she replies that forgiveness doesn't erase pain, it just gives it purpose. Nicolai lowers the volume and closes his eyes, hearing her voice echo through the small room. He doesn't need to be beside her anymore. Knowing she's safe, strong, and heard is enough. He picks up a pen and starts writing again, not to plan or command, but simply to remember. Every word he writes feels like atonement for the man he once was. Weeks later, Lena receives an invitation to perform at the National Theater in Washington. It's her biggest event yet, a charity concert for victims of organized crime. She's nervous but excited. On the night of the performance, the crowd fills the grand hall. The lights dim, and she steps onto the stage, feeling the weight of her journey. She opens with the same song she used to sing alone in her bar, the one her mother loved most. As her voice fills the theater, she feels an invisible presence, calm and familiar, watching from somewhere far away. Nicolai listens to the live broadcast from his villa, sitting by an open window with the sound drifting through the radio. He imagines her standing on stage, the crowd silent, the world listening. Every note reminds him of the promises they kept, the justice, the peace, the love they never had to name. He pours a drink and raises it slightly toward the horizon, a quiet toast only he will know about. In that moment he realizes something rare for a man like him. He doesn't regret anything. Everything led to her voice, reaching this far. After the performance, Lena returns backstage to find her phone buzzing with messages. Reporters, old friends, even strangers are thanking her. Among them is an unfamiliar number with a single message. The song reached here too. She knows it's him. No one else would write something that simple. She smiles softly and types nothing back. They've never needed words to understand each other. That night she walks out into the cold air, tilts her head to the sky, and whispers a quiet thank you, because somehow, even from miles away, she knows he's listening. The next morning, news outlets run headlines calling Lena's concert a voice that changed a city. She doesn't read them all. Instead, she spends the day visiting the foundation's music program for children. She listens as they sing, their voices uneven but full of joy. Watching them makes her realize something important. Her mother's legacy isn't just justice, it's hope, the same hope Nicolai helped her hold on to. Later that night, she hangs a photo of her mother near the piano and lights a candle beneath it. The flame flickers softly, steady and warm, like memory itself. As seasons change, Nicolai begins to walk the countryside near his home every morning. Locals know him as a quiet man who keeps to himself. He helps the nearby farmers when they need extra hands, blending into ordinary life. No one recognizes him as the former Mafia boss who once ruled Chicago's underworld. One day, a young boy helps him carry supplies and asks his name. Nicolai smiles faintly and replies, "Just a man who made mistakes." It's the first time he's ever said it aloud. It feels lighter than he imagined, like a burden finally lifted. Meanwhile, Lena's bar continues to thrive. Travelers visit from different states just to hear her sing. The walls are covered with photographs from people her foundation helped, each face a reminder of why she never stopped. One evening, as she finishes a song, she glances at the crowd and spots Victor sitting quietly near the back. After the show, he approaches her, handing over a small envelope. Inside is a single photograph of Nicolai standing outside his villa, looking healthy and content. Lena's eyes fill with tears. She finally knows he's at peace. That night, Lena closes the bar early and walks along the riverfront. The city lights reflect off the water like broken stars. She takes out the photograph again, studying his face. The lines around his eyes are softer now, the expression almost gentle. She realizes that while her life moved forward, a part of her heart remained tied to the quiet strength he gave her. She whispers into the wind that she'll keep singing, not for fame or remembrance, but because it's what connected them when words couldn't. Her voice will always carry a part of him. Months later, Lena organizes a memorial concert for her mother and all victims of exploitation. The event draws thousands, each person holding a candle. As she steps on stage, she feels her mother's presence in the crowd. She begins to sing the song that started it all. Her voice rises over the candlelight, powerful and calm. Somewhere in Italy, Nicolai listens to the live stream, the sound echoing through his home. For him, it's not just music, it's the closing of an old wound. Her song has done what no gun, no threat ever could. It brought peace. The following week, Lena travels to Italy for the first time, invited to perform at a cultural charity gala. She decides not to tell anyone her real reason for going. When she lands, she takes a car to the countryside, following an address Victor quietly gave her. The drive winds through fields and olive trees until she spots the villa at the top of a hill. She steps out, heart pounding. It's quiet, except for the sound of cicadas. She knocks on the door, unsure if he'll even answer, or if she's ready to see him again. The door opens slowly, and there he is. Nicolai stands in the doorway, older, sun-tanned, but unmistakably himself. For a long moment they simply look at each other. No greetings, no explanations. Then he gestures for her to come in. The villa smells of books and warm bread. On the table lies the same white rose she used to find on her piano. Lena smiles softly, realizing some habits never fade. They sit together in the quiet kitchen, the distance of years disappearing between them. No past, no titles, just two lives that finally found stillness. They spend the day talking about everything they never said. Her foundation, the new government, Victor's retirement, the lives saved because of her mother's story. Nicolai listens more than he speaks. He tells her he never thought he'd see peace in his lifetime. She tells him she never thought she'd forgive the world that took her mother. Somehow they both managed it. As the sun sets over the hills, they share a meal on the patio. For once there's no danger waiting beyond the gate. It's just life, quiet and honest, something neither thought possible. Later that night, Lena sits by the piano. Nicolai keeps in his living room. She plays softly, the same melody she used to sing after closing her bar. Nicolai leans against the doorway, watching her hands move across the keys. The song fills the villa, gentle and familiar. When she finishes, she looks up and smiles. He tells her the music never sounded better. She replies that maybe it finally has a place where it belongs. The quiet that follows isn't empty, it's full, peaceful and complete, the kind of silence both of them fought so hard to earn. Over the next few days they fall into an easy rhythm. Nicolai tends his garden while Lena helps in the kitchen. In the evenings they walk along the countryside road, sharing small stories and comfortable silences. Neither of them tries to define what they are to each other. It doesn't need a name. Their connection has already survived too much to be limited by labels. They simply exist together, grateful for the chance to breathe the same air without fear. It's not about love or duty anymore. It's about peace, and they've both finally found it. When it's time for Lena to leave, Nicolai walks her to the car. She promises to visit again soon, and he tells her she always has a place there. They exchange a quiet look that says more than words ever could. As the car drives away, Nicolai stands at the gate, watching until the dust settles. He feels no sadness, only gratitude. The man who once ruled through power now rules only over his own heart, and for him that's enough. He turns back toward the villa, the faint echo of her music still in the air. Back in Chicago, Lena performs her final concert of the year. The crowd fills every seat, but she barely notices them. She's thinking about the villa, the hills, and the man who changed her life. When the lights dim, she sings the song her mother wrote, blending it with new verses she added herself. The audience doesn't know the meaning behind the words, but they feel it, the story of a woman who lost everything and found peace through song. As the applause fills the theater, Lena closes her eyes, her heart full and steady. After the concert, Lena walks alone through the quiet city streets. The air carries the first chill of winter. She passes the alley where her bar once stood before it expanded, remembering the nights she sang to no one. Now the same streets hum with life, laughter, and music from nearby cafes. She smiles, knowing her mother would have loved this. She glances up at the skyline and whispers softly to herself that this is what it was all for, not fame, not revenge, but the simple freedom to live without fear. That's the truest song of all. Across the ocean, Nicolai sits on his porch, under a starlit sky. He plays an old record, the same recording of Lena's mother's song he once kept hidden. The melody drifts through the warm air, blending with the sound of crickets. He closes his eyes and lets the past settle. There's no more guilt, no more debts to pay. Everything that needed to be done is finished. When the record ends, he pours himself a drink, raises it toward the stars, and says quietly that she kept her promise. Then, for the first time, he allows himself to rest. Lena wakes early the next morning, feeling at peace. She makes tea and sits by the window, watching the sunrise. On the table lies a new envelope with foreign stamps. Inside is a single photograph, a view of the Tuscan hills with a white rose placed on the windowsill. No name, no message. She doesn't need one. She frames the photo and places it beside her mother's picture. In that simple image, two lives converge, the one who gave her a voice and the one who protected it. Between them, she finally understands what legacy truly means. That night, Lena stands on her bar's small stage once again. The room is full, but when she closes her eyes, it feels just like the old days, quiet, personal, sacred. She begins to sing softly, her voice carrying through the crowd. It's a song for her mother, for Nicolai, for everyone who chose truth over power. The audience listens in silence, moved by something they can't quite name. When she finishes, she smiles faintly. The story that began in loss has found its ending in peace, carried forever by a single, unbroken voice. The following months bring a new rhythm to Lena's life. Her bar thrives, her foundation expands, and her days are filled with purpose instead of fear. Yet some nights, when the lights go out and the city quiets, she still glances toward the door, half expecting him to walk in. The thought doesn't make her sad, it comforts her. Nicolai taught her that even the darkest lives can be rewritten. His absence feels like a presence, as if his silence is its own kind of promise that she's safe, that he's still watching, somewhere far beyond the noise. In Italy, Nicolai keeps to his quiet life. He rises early, tends to his garden, and reads the morning paper. Sometimes he pauses at the mention of Lena's name, an article about her charity, a quote about her mother's music, and smiles faintly. The world sees her as an artist, but to him she'll always be the proof that good can grow out of ruin. He sends small donations to her foundation through untraceable channels, never signing his name. He doesn't need credit or connection. Knowing she continues to sing is enough to remind him that redemption was possible. Lena's influence reaches far beyond her bar. She's invited to speak at universities and community centers, sharing her story without embellishment. She talks about courage, about loss, and about the people who show up in unexpected ways. Each time she tells her story, she leaves out Nicolai's name, but his presence sits in every pause. The audience never sees the man who stood in the shadows for her, but his legacy lives quietly in her every word. He saved her life, and now she saves others through the strength he once lent her. Their bond remains unspoken, but eternal. One night, Lena dreams of her mother's bar as it used to be. Dim lights, laughter, the smell of coffee and rain. Her mother stands behind the counter, smiling softly, humming the tune she used to sing. Then, in the corner, she sees Nicolai sitting at his usual table, watching quietly. Neither speaks, they just listen as she begins to sing again, her voice rising like it did in the old days. When she wakes, her pillow is wet with tears, but her heart feels light. The dream doesn't feel like loss, it feels like a reunion long overdue. In the weeks that follow, Lena starts recording a new album, a tribute to the people who shaped her journey. Each track carries a story, some about her mother, others about unseen protectors and lost promises. The final song, "The Man in the Shadows," is written entirely for Nicolai. The lyrics speak of strength without cruelty and love without claim. When the album releases, it becomes an instant success. Critics call it haunting and beautiful. Lena calls it closure. Through music, she finally gives voice to everything she never got to say out loud. Back in Tuscany, Nicolai receives a copy of the album in a plain envelope. There's no letter, only the CD and a pressed white rose inside. He places it carefully in his player and sits down to listen. When the final track plays, he hears his story told through her voice, gentle, forgiving, and raw. The song doesn't glorify him. It redeems him in ways he never thought possible. He closes his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. For the first time, he feels free of everything: his past, his sins, his grief. She gave him peace through song. The next morning, Nicolai writes one last letter. He doesn't explain much, only gratitude. He tells Lena she rebuilt the world he broke, that her mother would have been proud, and that the story they shared belongs entirely to her now. He places the letter inside an envelope with a photo of the lake house they once hid in and mails it to her foundation. Afterward, he walks to his garden, trimming the roses with steady hands. There's no sadness in him, only stillness. For a man who lived by control, learning peace feels like a final victory. Weeks later, Lena receives the letter. She recognizes the handwriting before she even opens it. As she reads, tears spill freely, not from pain, but from understanding. She places the letter beside the framed photograph of her mother and the rose photo he once sent. That night, she sits at the piano, reading his words over and over. She doesn't know if she'll ever see him again, but she doesn't need to. Some goodbyes don't require presents. His message says everything. She saved him as much as he saved her. It's the ending they both earned. Life moves on, but Lena keeps their memories alive in small, quiet ways. Every performance she gives ends with one soft note of the song she sang the night they met. Audiences don't notice, but she does. It's her secret reminder that even the darkest beginnings can lead to something pure. She no longer fears the quiet after the applause. It feels like home now. Each night she turns off the stage lights, smiles to herself, and whispers a quiet goodnight, not to the crowd but to the man who once stepped from the shadows to protect her. One afternoon, as she's preparing for a show, a delivery arrives at the bar. Inside the package is a small wooden music box, hand-carved with intricate roses on the lid. When she opens it, the familiar melody of her mother's song plays softly. There's no note, no return address. But she knows it's from him. She places it near the piano, letting it play while she prepares. The sound feels like a goodbye wrapped in gratitude. She closes her eyes, allowing the music to settle inside her, realizing that even across oceans, some promises never fade. In the countryside, Nicolai's health begins to decline. The years of violence and sleepless nights finally take their toll. Victor visits occasionally, bringing supplies and news from the city. One afternoon, Nicolai sits by the window, listening to Lena's music box tune playing softly from his phone. He smiles faintly, whispering to himself that she's still singing. He knows his time is short, but he feels no fear. His story ended long ago, he's simply living the epilogue. He leans back, looking out toward the olive fields, feeling the sun on his face one last time. When Victor returns weeks later, he finds Nicolai's chair empty, a book resting on the table, and a glass of wine beside it. There's no struggle, no sign of pain, just peace. The window is open, the breeze carrying the faint sound of music from a nearby radio. Victor stands silently for a moment, then folds his hands. The man who once ruled through fear left the world quietly, surrounded by beauty. He gathers Nicolai's few belongings and sends a small package to Lena, knowing she's the only one who'll understand its meaning. No obituary, no headlines, just silence. A month later, Lena receives the package. Inside, wrapped in linen, is Nicolai's pocket watch and a folded note written in Victor's hand. It says only, he kept his promise. She holds the watch tightly, feeling the weight of it in her palm. It's old, scratched, but still ticking steadily. She places it beside her mother's locket on the piano, two lives intertwined through her song. That night, she sings for both of them, her voice steady and full. The grief feels gentle this time, not sharp. It's love, disguised as farewell, echoing softly through the bar. As years pass, Lena's story becomes legend. young musicians talk about her courage and the mysterious man who once protected her. She never confirms the rumors. She simply tells them that every song carries a story, and every story carries someone's heart. Her foundation expands internationally, helping thousands. Each year she donates anonymously to rural schools under the name Romano Grant. People think it's a sponsor. She knows it's her way of keeping his name alive quietly, respectfully, just as he lived his final years. Some debts are paid not in money, but in remembrance. One evening, while closing the bar, Lena finds herself alone again. The lights glow low, the seats empty, the same way they were the night Nicolai first listened. She walks to the stage and sings softly to herself, the melody old and comforting. For a moment she imagines him sitting there again, coat collar up, watching quietly. When the song ends, she whispers a quiet thank you into the still air. The sound fades, but the peace remains. She turns off the lights and leaves, her heart steady. Some stories don't end, they just learn how to rest. Years later, the city dedicates a small memorial near the riverfront for victims of organized crime. At the ceremony, Lena performs one final time. Her hair has grayed, her hands tremble slightly, but her voice still holds the same clarity. As she sings, a light breeze moves through the crowd, and she feels the presence of both her mother and Nicolai beside her. It's not sadness that fills her, but gratitude. The applause that follows isn't for fame, it's for survival, for courage, for love that found its way through ruin. She smiles softly, knowing the circle is complete. After the ceremony, Lena walks to the water's edge, watching the river flow. She thinks about how far everything has come, from her mother's death to the city's rebirth. The world keeps moving, but the lessons remain. She takes Nicolai's pocket watch from her bag and holds it up to the fading light. It still ticks, quiet, but steady, like her own heart. She places it gently into the water, letting it drift away. Some memories belong to the past, carried forward by time itself. She turns and walks away, finally at peace with everything left behind. Back at her bar, now managed by younger hands, Lena visits occasionally to watch others perform. The stage where she once stood now belongs to new voices with stories of their own. She sits in the back smiling, hearing fragments of her mother's melodies woven into modern songs. The legacy lives, reshaped and renewed. She realizes her story was never about loss. It was about continuity. The song never truly ends, it just changes who sings it, and somewhere beyond she hopes Nicolai hears it still, carried by the echoes of everything they built together. Years blend into quiet simplicity. Lena spends her days near the countryside, writing and teaching music to children. They don't know her past. They only know her as the kind lady with the gentle voice. Sometimes she tells them that music can heal what words can't. They don't understand yet, but someday they will. Every now and then she hears about old cases solved because of her foundation's work, and she feels proud, not for fame, but for purpose. Her life has become the harmony between memory and peace, exactly what she and Nicolai once hoped for. One evening, while the sun sets over the fields, Lena sits outside her small cottage, surrounded by children singing softly. Their laughter blends with the melody, carrying across the wind. She closes her eyes, hearing her mother's voice among them, and for a brief moment, she feels Nicolai's presence too, strong, calm, watching over. She doesn't need proof. Some connections outlast life itself. When the children finish, she smiles, telling them they sang beautifully. In their joy, she sees every part of the journey: grief, courage, love, and forgiveness, all turned into song. It's a perfect ending. That night, Lena writes in her journal for the last time. She thanks her mother for the strength she left behind, and thanks the man who taught her to be fearless in a world that once silenced her. She writes that love doesn't always look like forever. It sometimes looks like protection, sacrifice, and peace. She leaves the journal open on her piano and goes to bed, the music box still playing softly in the background. The song loops endlessly, fading only as she drifts into sleep, her face calm, her spirit finally at rest. Morning comes quietly. The caretaker finds Lena asleep, her hand resting on the open journal. The music box sits beside her, still turning slowly. On the page, her final words are simple. Every song ends, but the silence after belongs to peace. Her passing feels gentle, like the closing of a well-played note. The world mourns her, but they celebrate her more. Her bar becomes a landmark, her music a lesson in courage. In every corner of the city, her name is spoken with warmth, a symbol of how love and truth can rebuild anything broken. Months later, during a memorial concert, one of her students performs her favorite song. The audience is silent, captivated by the same melody that started everything. As the last note fades, a breeze moves through the hall, brushing across faces like an unseen blessing. Some swear they hear two faint voices singing along, a woman and a man, both steady and at peace. The performance ends in tears and applause, but for those who knew the story, it feels more like a reunion. In that moment, Lena's legacy and Nicolai's redemption merge into something timeless. Years pass, but the legend of Lena Caruso and the man in the shadows continues to inspire countless songs, films, and stories, yet none capture the truth entirely. The real story lives quietly in the hearts of those who believe that even broken people can change the world when they choose love over power. Somewhere in history their names fade, but their melody doesn't. It lives on in every brave act, in every voice that refuses to be silenced. What began as one woman singing to an empty bar became an anthem for generations to come. In the city where it all began, the old bar still stands, now restored and glowing warmly each night. Inside, a plaque hangs by the piano that reads, "For those who sing even when no one listens." The stool beside it remains empty, saved in quiet tribute. When the last customers leave and the lights dim, the place feels alive with echoes of the past, a woman's voice, a mother's song, and a man's silent vow. The story of Lena and Nicolai never truly ends. It simply continues, forever carried in the rhythm of every heart that listens.